Kapil Gupta. It's great to be with you again.
Thank you, Mo. Same.
You're a man of truth, and I always have to start by asking you, any surprising truth emerged for you lately about anything?
No, it's never that clean. So many have probably emerged, but it's never really a show and tell, like a poster presentation that this is the truth that I found. The truths really are ones that seep into you and kind of become a little bit of a new skin. So it's almost that it becomes more a part of you than it is an intellectualization of this is what it is.
Well, you just said something to me before we hit this record, and I know how proud you are of the boys, and even I feel part of it now watching Amin and some of the things that he did. You were just talking to me about what you guys have been working on to kind of get them ready for that, whatever that highest level is. And you said that, hey, when you're out creating something, you're out on your own, everything is new. Unpack that for me a little bit.
Well, there's no formula or recipe book, and anytime that you try to make something formulaic or follow some recipe book or some success book or motivational book or whatever it is, it's never the way to the top. The way to the top is always it's a murky process, and because you're dealing not only with the task of getting somewhere, that's the sort of X's and the O, that's the black and white part of it, but you're dealing with the ephemeral nature of the human mind, and you're dealing with the mind of another person, and so it's the navigating of having a lot of balls in the air that you're juggling in order to find harmony, the sweet spot of getting somewhere, and that is very, very much an exploratory journey. It's comical that people tend to view things in the society as, well, what do I do? As if, well, go do 12 jumping jacks and you'll get there. It's nothing is that way, and society makes everything that way, and therefore human beings are not to be blamed for asking such silly questions, because they've been conditioned by silliness, because everything does have a 5-step plan. Not that it works, but it has one. And so therefore they approach everything with the 5-step plan. And nothing is really that way. Nothing of substantialness, nothing of greatness, nothing of great value is ever linear. And nothing's ever prescriptive. Nothing is ever method-oriented. It isn't that clean.
Well, anyone who's listened to us and who knows you knows that your standards are always been at that world-class level. Those are the people you work with. Certainly that's what you expect of yourself. And so I'm interested, as you're working with the boys, how do these world-class athletes, leaders, how do they approach practice? Because you're out on the golf course every day, whether you call it practice or not, you're preparing for those big moments. How do you approach that?
I think it's different in my particular immediate environment, because they've kind of grown up with certain exposures. Me speaking a certain way and that sort of thing. And so to them, it isn't as
the way of life,
off the wall, or, ridiculously, massively outside the box, over the moon type of stuff. But, anyone who isn't in my immediacy, it is going to totally be completely off the wall. Because so a lot of it is really a refinement of understanding. I think for the people, who are not, like I said, in my immediacy, it's very much an unlearning. an unlearning of the traditional norms of things, of so-called practice, which I don't even subscribe to that.
I know that.
Yeah. I could tell by your question that you knew that. So it really is about first discovering what it is that you really want, and the nature of what you want dictates what you're ready for.
How do you measure someone's level of seriousness? If they weren't your boys and they were, a college sophomore and a 14-year-old young man who had golf talents, how do you identify whether someone has that level of devotion or obsession that you look for?
I don't think it's that difficult to see. I think in many ways it's it can be both a help as well as a hindrance, because if I'm dealing with a stranger, it's very black and white. If I'm dealing with, my own son, it's less black and white. You basically have to become a Buddha I'm not there, but you basically have to become a Buddha to treat your kids like strangers. And quite ironically, treating your kids like strangers is the most effective way to parent.
Which sounds very odd to a lot of people.
Well, what else is new?
Yeah. And speaking of that, I don't know, I'm sure you remember, but you actually published publicly a letter to Amin after that U.S. Amateur. Do you remember writing it? Do you remember what you put in there? It touched me.
I remember it was a picture, and I don't remember. Did I write something?
Yes. And some very thoughtful, heartfelt words. I assume you don't remember the words.
No.
Well, people can find it obviously they can find it on the website, but if you had to write that again and it's coming from the heart, what are you trying to convey to him? Because you're not trying to convey a lesson. You're not trying to say good try because he didn't win. What would you want to say to him?
It would honestly, the answer to that is I would say whatever is, I would say in relation to what is asked, because when you say what did you want to say, the implication is that there's something to say. The implication, and that's coming from the implication of saying something to console or feel better or whatever it is, and those things just don't work, right? So it isn't about saying something to lift someone up, and it isn't about saying something to put someone down. Both of those things are untrue. They're just reactive, cosmetic things just to improve someone's mood, and they don't go anywhere. So really, the only true conversations that are effective are the ones, the ones that I have are the ones that in which a question is posed. There's nothing for me to offer.
Yeah, I know that. And I'm gonna share that once we publish this interview, because I think it's very heartfelt, but it really got me thinking.
I'd be interested to know what it was too.
Yeah, I'll let you know. But it got me thinking about a lot of the things that you taught me and the things that I embraced in our conversations. One of which is that, hey, obviously we're conditioned as a society. And, the more conditions we become as individuals, it really distorts what we see and what we hear and what we bring in. And I know this all goes back to the traps of our mind. So I'm curious for you, what do you do to create the space in your mind where you do filter out all the shit so you allow the truth to come in?
No, it's not a real question, because there's no way that I can begin to answer that question, because there's nothing that I do to do anything. So there's nothing, and that's what I mean. Like, you are bringing conventional thinking, like how do you make a pair of shoes, to something that in which those things have no value. They have no relevance. They have no meaning. You can't bring that into this domain, because that currency doesn't work. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to do anything.
So let me try to come at it from another angle. When you get a persistent thought pattern, all right, for example, from an athletic standpoint, if an athlete keeps coming up short, either in the last inning or in the last hole or whatever, your mind starts to play games with you that you're not good enough to either play at this level, or you don't deal with pressure very well. When those persistent thought patterns are coming up, what is it telling you?
The person knows best if he's willing to look.
And when somebody keeps coming up short and continue to do the same thing, and he's not looking.
You see, what you're not understanding, you're basically asking the question that, let's say there's a teaspoon of whatever, a medicine.
Honey.
Honey, okay? And if the person takes the honey, right, then that provides him some insight, okay? What you're asking me is, what do you do if the person won't take the honey? I don't care if he takes the honey. And if I will generally see in the first encounter, before I even decide if I'm going to work with him or not, that if he is the type in which I'm going to have any trouble. So it's never going to get to that point that he's not taking the honey, and I have to find a way to convince him to take the honey. I don't care if he takes the honey.
Yeah, I know you don't.
There's nothing that I want to say. Like, I don't need him to take the honey. So you said, what if he's not willing to look? Okay, then don't look. It has nothing to do with me. Like you imply, and I don't blame you for implying it, because every single
That's why I love these conversations.
No, because every single thing that you are saying does in fact go on. I don't blame you for saying it, but I think you would know better by now than to bring dirty laundry into here, because you're right. The coaches will try to find a way to get him to eat the honey, right? I don't care if he eats the honey. I'm so averse to even talking to someone in the first place that convince someone to do something.
Yeah, that's not in your vocabulary.
No, it isn't. It's not of any. It isn't a stance that I take. It isn't a principle of mine. It isn't a rule that I stand by. I just, very innocently, I'm just not interested.
What is it about Tom Brady who just thrives and wants the ball in his hand when nobody else does? And I know it's a very broad question.
But I don't see what can come from the answer.
Your
Who
thoughts?
Cares? Like about what? I don't care. Like, why does it matter? Okay, let's say he thrives because of X, Y, and Z. So what? Like, who cares? What's the difference? What do you, I mean, I know what your implication is. If the audience hears, and then they too will implement the X, Y, Z. It's all nonsense. It's an irrelevant question. It's like saying, why do you think he likes broccoli? What is it? What's the difference? Like, it's not meaningful. You know, idol worship isn't meaningful. Putting these guys on pedestals isn't meaningful. Trying to learn from successful people isn't meaningful. The only thing meaningful is to discover who you are. And all the things that you call thrive, half the time they're choking their guts out inside anyways.
I'm sure.
Right? So
sure.
I'm not saying any names that these two specific people are, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying what you see through the TV screen isn't oftentimes what's really going on. Mm-hmm. You tend to believe it's easy to see something that really isn't there.
That's a great point. And I want to relate it to something that I had a friend who shared something with me that I want to get your thoughts on. And he had a conversation with his best friend who was just diagnosed with cancer. And he said that one of the things that his doctor told him is you need to listen to your body and you need to listen to yourself. And that's going to kind of tell you what to do and what not to do. So his friend was asking us, what does that even mean? Listening to myself. I've never listened to myself.
I agree. Do you
listen to yourself?
I agree with him. It's a very broad, meaningless statement. It depends what the doctor even means. I think I sort of understand the sentiment, mm-hmm. but I don't want to give too much credit because people usually are coming at things in a very cosmetic way. And as soon as you start to think, wait a minute, this might be a profound insight, when you read into it, you find out, that's not what he meant at all. Mm-hmm. So,
it's cliche.
Yeah, so I don't know what that means. If I said it, I know what I would mean, but in all honesty, what I would mean, nobody would be willing to do it anyways.
Of course.
Coming from where I'm talking about it. But yeah, I mean, it's not unreasonable advice. I understand the confusion.
Do you listen to yourself?
I don't know what that means. I have no idea what that means. What do you mean by that?
When your mind is chattering?
Well, if the mind is chattering, why would you listen to that? I mean, do you listen to the guy outside who's building a house and the construction workers are over there, with cranes and hammering nails into the sheetrock? Do you listen to that? Why would you listen? What is the point of listening to yourself? I'm not saying it's good.
Isn't that how we're all conditioned?
Well, I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying you should listen to yourself. I'm not saying you shouldn't listen to yourself. I'm saying listen to yourself as you're asking that question, because you're coming at it from a very spiritual, meaningless standpoint. It has no meaning to listen to yourself. What does that even mean? It just, all these, you see, it's just billboards.
It means you're buying into the trap of your mind, right? You're thinking.
So what if I said you shouldn't listen to yourself? Are you going to stop? I mean, there's no relevance to this.
No, I don't think you're going to. I think what it does is, it just kind of goes back to this point. You are a man of truth, right? And a lot of shit that goes on in our mind does the exact opposite. Takes us as far away from that as possible. There's a huge gap between where you live and where people who are sincere and devoted, who want to kind of get at that level. And then, 99.9% of the world. And, I'm hopeful that 3 or 4 people want to find their own truth and will at some point realize that a lot of the shit that's going on in their head is taking them away from that.
Well, it's much more instructive than to discover that the questions that are surfacing are billboards and bumper stickers. It is much more instructive to realize that Because if someone is genuinely interested in the truth, he must begin with where he is. And if one realizes that everything coming out of his mouth is bumper stickers and billboards, then he will begin to see the nature of his own conditioning firsthand, as opposed to trying to do something about something in which he hasn't even come to terms with yet. The looking for solutions is a waste of time. The whole world lives in solutions. And these people called like these solution specialists and all. It's this ridiculous society. It's not about the solution. It's never about the solution. It's really delving into what your issue is. People are addicted to fixes, and they will always be.
And they're afraid of facing the pain because it's almost impossible to get to the truth. Right?
The implication there is that you should face the pain. No, you shouldn't face the pain. Who wants pain? Why would anyone want to face pain? That doesn't do anything. You're already in pain all the time anyways as a human being. Whether you face it or not, it's always there in some form or another. Things are always, you're always getting blindsided by this or that. The market's going down, or, someone said something.
Bitcoin's going down, and you were going to be,
there's 6 million arrows being, thrown at you every single day. So what are you going to get by facing it? As if, facing it is this machismo, ego-based, face your fears nonsense from bumper sticker world. Nothing has any meaning. It's all, quite honestly, truth would be that you have a podcast and don't say anything, because then you won't say anything nonsense, because it's everything is just nonsense, right? So anything that is related.
But I enjoy our nonsense.
But no, the enjoyment of nonsense is not really valid. I mean, anything that relates to what should I do, and anything that relates to what can someone learn from so-and-so, nobody should put anyone on a pedestal. Okay. Every human being is a completely screwed up human being. Okay. Every human being from top to bottom is totally messed up, just in different ways. So to look at someone else and say, oh, well, I'm going to follow his habits of doing this, you're just basically ingesting their garbage. It's buying a used car. Time is well spent when it's examining one's own life without the compulsion of fixing anything, following anything, having ideals to live up to, becoming more improved, but purity, sincerity. And no, sincerity is not good. And if you think it's good, I'm going to tell you it's the worst thing in the world. And I hope you go to hell for doing it if you think it's good. Okay? Nothing is good. Nothing is healthy. It's if something is pure, if something is done from a place of genuineness, organicness, honesty, that isn't good either. But that isn't lying. That is in the direction of truth.
Okay, so I want to get your thoughts on something that intrigued me earlier this week. I was facilitating a leadership panel with a group of 8 wonderful leaders who were running wonderful companies, and an interesting topic seemed to take over the conversation, and it was a topic of mental health. And I know we're not giving prescriptions here. We're not giving medical advice. We're just talking. But the issue intrigued me. And it seems to me that a lot more people are open to talking about that today than maybe in the past. So for those who think they're dealing with mental challenges, knowing that I was going to catch up with you this week, I thought I would get your perspective on it. Does that too start with the mind?
Absolutely. I think what needs to be understood is that everyone is mentally deranged, and that isn't a derogatory statement.
Sure,
I genuinely mean that. Everyone has psychopathology. People that have it to just different degrees. There's no such thing as normal. Normal is just an agreed upon normal, according to the greatest prevalence in society. It's a biological democracy to some degree, you know. So I don't think that there's something called normal and then there's mental health, because every human being suffers, not just mildly. Everyone suffers for their entire life. That's mental illness. Mm-hmm. It isn't mental illness that you shouldn't suffer. The reason it's mental illness is because the mind itself is an illness. The human being lives in a constant state of anxiety, varying degrees of so-called depression. All these things are just terms. They're just categorizations of common phenomenon into this and that. They're all derangements. They're all aberrations from the natural default, whether you call it anxiety or depression or whatever you want to call it. Those are just names. Everyone is mentally disturbed in various ways.
What do you think makes it so difficult for people to talk about it?
But I don't think there's a point of talking about it. The therapy doesn't do anything.
I get it. I totally get it.
So why talk? So then why talk about it? The only reason that you would talk about it is because talking about it would do something, and it doesn't. It may provide a temporary good feeling or whatever it may be, but it doesn't cure anything. Not even close.
I get it.
So what's the point? So
here's the point. Assuming again that you as a leader start to recognize some of these at least abnormal behaviors in some of the people that you work with or some of the people that you're closely connected with. Do you feel it's a responsibility for a leader to bring that up?
No, there's no responsibility to do anything. You're responsible for yourself. You're not, I don't even like the word leader. What does that mean? It means maybe you're in a...
How about just a title?
You're in a leader, you know, you're in a position of hierarchical power, perhaps in a company, and therefore, you know, you're the CEO or you're the whatever it may be.
Yes.
In any group, right? So you're the leader. Leaders are screwed up just like the janitor.
Of course.
So it doesn't. So why should if the janitor is mentally disturbed, and then the leader is mentally disturbed, why would you place more responsibility on one of the mentally disturbed for another one? It isn't just because he is at the top of the totem pole that he's this enlightened being, right? I mean, only an enlightened being, a person with true wisdom, which is not a leader. I mean, only an enlightened being, a person of true wisdom, that person has the ability to guide another. But a leader by position, a leader by the size of the chair, and I don't mean in a derogatory way. I mean a person who builds a company, a person who does, you know, these are not small things. So I don't in any way, you know, degrade that. I don't take that away from anyone because they're not small things. But that just demonstrates a level of proficiency in various talents of success and drive and motivation and building. That's great. But to place the onus upon someone for the mental health of someone else when everyone is suffering from top to bottom, it's overstating the idea of leader.
Mm-hmm. If you were in one of those positions or you were coaching somebody in one of those positions about ways to approach those issues in an organizational wide type initiative, what would you tell them? Obviously, I know that it all starts with you taking care of your own shit, but what's beyond that?
No, it doesn't start with that. It ends with that too.
Oh, so I got 50% of it.
I don't know. Like, You see, you're bringing the dirty laundry again, and that's fine. That's fine. It's good to it's good for people to hear this. But the implication, once again, is this conditioned implication, this conditioned behavior to teach people a bunch of stuff in the organization, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't work. When they have these motivational speakers come in and they give a lot of hee hee ha ha, a joke every 19 minutes. It's stupid. It's juvenile. Okay. I mean, it's silly that you could have a multi-billion
dollar, it is, man.
multi-billion-dollar company, and you're wasting time and money treating human beings like they're pigs in a pen, and saying, look at this prop and look at this prop and let me tell you a nice story and all these stupid things. Human beings are not taught in a mass environment. That doesn't work. The only thing that works is the only thing that has a potential to work. And the thing that has a potential to work is if a human being himself decides to come forward and he presents the desire and the longing to learn. You don't take people and put them in a pig pen and sprinkle a bunch of sugar on them. It is so juvenile that companies do this. It is just yet another example of how human beings have no earthly idea how the human mind works. They could save themselves billions of dollars by stopping all these nonsense and workshops and meditation rooms and kumbaya classes. I mean, it's nonsense because no one is serious. If you became serious, you would seriously examine what actually works and what doesn't. You'd be interested in that. But that isn't how human beings are. They just check boxes. They just fill the event calendar. And that's not respectable. And that's why I'm not moved by the idea of leader, because most leaders I don't think are worthy. That isn't a leader who brings in nonsense and has their sprinkles a bunch of stuff on their people. That isn't a leader. A leader is interested in what is truly effective, what is surgical. That means something that can actually help someone.
So do you think that it would be effective if that person, call him, her, CEO, leader, evangelist, whatever you want to call him, becomes the person who really gives that permission to his or her people to seek that, their own self-expression and to seek their own, whatever it is, their own truth is that?
No, I think he'll be laughed out of the building.
Because they won't know what the hell he's talking about?
Right. Because he will be coming at it. He will be saying something that is so contrary to the norm that no one's going to understand him. You see, you can't teach human beings and condition them according to X, and then one day turn the tables and say Y and think they're going to get it. You made them into X for 50 years. Why wouldn't all they see is X? If it doesn't come in the language of X, they're not going to understand. They're not sitting there saying, I wish someone gave me Y. I'm not saying that. Everyone's a walking zombie. You get up in the morning, you go over here, you do this, you check the box over here, you go over here, you have a meeting, you talk nonsense, you go home, you watch some stupid TV show, you say such and such to your wife or your kids, and you get up the next morning and you go do it again, right? And then there you sprinkle some of these leadership conferences. Once again, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. And what I'm saying is that the human beings do not look for truth, and nor should they. I'm just making the statement that they don't. And because they don't, any discussion about what they do is a waste of time.
Do you think that their eagerness to seek validation and approval and to be liked by their boards, by their people, by the people they manage and lead, is that something that you think constantly gets in the way of them?
Well, it gets in the way. It gets in the way of everybody, right? Everyone is driven by ego and pleasure. But so what? What are you going to do? You know. See, the reason I always say "so what" is because there's nothing to teach here. Like, don't want to write anything down.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So the reason I say "so what" is, yes, everyone is driven by that, but so what? Because as if they have a choice, right? It's the very, very rare individual that comes forward and says, well, you know, I'm very interested to really explore because I don't know any other way. And this is very, very intriguing to me. So when, like, if that happens, it like a possibility is born. But other than that, it's just chit chat. Yeah. Do human beings waste their time? Yeah. But so what? Do human beings waste their lives? Yes. But so what? Do human beings have board meetings that go nowhere and waste their time? Yeah. But so what? Do human beings enjoy validation? Yeah. But so what are you going to do? Say, don't validate yourself? Right. So all these things, it's all so what? The only time it's not so what is if a human being finds something inside him that is longing to devote himself to something. And you can't turn your next question into a hypothetical, which says, well, what if I do find a human being who happens to, because it doesn't mean anything. Those people are very rare. And so you can't just ascribe that quality flippantly.
Well, that's why I know that you talk a lot about art. You talk a lot about artists, right? And the world uses those terms very loosely nowadays. But to you, an artist is an artist like a Rembrandt, like a Picasso, who lives in their own little world and doesn't look at, or at that point, obviously, validation and approval wasn't part of what helped them create.
Oh, but I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. I'm sure validation and approval were a part of most artists' life. But I think the bigger point here is that it doesn't matter what I view an artist as. Like, I don't own the monopoly on what an artist is. So what? That's what I think what an artist is. It doesn't matter. I'm not recommending that someone become a true artist, right? So it doesn't matter what I think that an artist is. A person is what he is, and he was that way before this podcast, and he's gonna be that after this podcast. So the attempt to change someone is a waste of time. But yeah, you're right. That's how I do view an artist as someone who is pure and genuine and devoted to his art, and views his art as something that is an endeavor in which he wants to dissolve and take to the utmost heights. And is completely, almost violently against any garnering any applause or critical acclaim from critics. Like that is like, he views that as like petty and a waste of his time. So absolutely, but that doesn't mean anything. So what? I could view it any way that I want. It doesn't. A person who happens to be moved by that and shares that, okay. And a person who doesn't, okay. But it isn't like, I never want the implication that because I view a true artist to be that way, that should in any way influence anyone. Because those things are not, because that's not true. Nothing, it isn't about changing anyone. Things are the way they are. People are the way they are. The trying to get better stuff, that's just a waste.
Well, and it goes back to kind of the some of the things we were talking about earlier with golf and practicing and the boys, where you talk about, hey, results are not going to come from practice. They're going to come from understanding the truth. And obviously not living in that time with the Rembrandts and the Picasso, it would seem like an observation that they skewed more towards the truth than I'm going to get up and start painting so I can practice to get better at it.
My honest answer to you with regard to that, my truthful answer to you would be this. How they end up viewing things or not viewing things is not my call. And I'm not being good by giving, that's just the way it's going to be. Right? Sure. They're going to view it the way they're going to view it. And I don't know. Just because I said something doesn't mean it's going to happen. I'm not the sergeant and the general, leading an army. And, these are free human beings. They can do whatever they want, right? I can just say, like, my limit to where my boundary is my immediate space. I can only say with truth that I view things that way. And it's not good or bad. Like, I didn't choose to view things that way, right? I just do. What someone else does, even though they grew up with me, I don't control that. So yes, you're right. The influence may take root. The influence may not take root, right? I don't know.
With a few of us, the influence has taken root. Let me just make sure I wanted to touch on two quick subjects because I don't want to keep you here all night. We've talked about this in the past, but what is the big misconception about meditation?
Well, here's the honest answer. I don't think there's anything that people don't see because no one really wants to see it. In the very, very, very same breath, I will say they don't have to want to see. I'm just making a point. That's it. So you come from a world in which, and we all do, we come from the world in which when someone makes a statement like they don't want to see, it is absolutely overtly implicated with hammers and nails, and coming down on your head with, well, you should want to see. And when I say that, because that's just the norm of how people talk, right? It's like a new language over here. I genuinely, with all my heart, do not mean that you should want to see. I'm just making a statement of fact that people don't understand because they don't want to. So there's nothing, so meditation, like you said, it's trendy, right? Everyone's a trend follower. Everyone's like that because everyone's beholden to ego and socialization and what's that called that the peacocks do when they show their feathers? I don't know what. There's a name for that. Basically just showing off to other people of, look, I'm doing the
belonging, right?
Huh?
They belong to something.
Yeah,
it's almost like you belong to a category.
Yeah, it's just look how many books I read and how Stoicism is the new thing. Let's follow the Stoics and dress up like Greek gods. And it's a society is a cosmetic carnival. So I think it is short-sighted to ask the question, what do they not understand about meditation? As if like I'm going to say X and they're going to say, oh, wow, I'm so glad I heard that because I was dying to know what the truth about meditation really was. And now that I've heard that, I'm going to drop my trends. And that's just silly, right? I almost don't want to say anything because it's wasted upon deaf ears, right? There's nothing to teach anyone. But the one who comes forward, that person, yeah, there's value for that person, but there's only value because he sees value in it, not because I see value in it.
So just say it then, because I see value in it. Well,
meditation is just like going for a walk or lifting weights or whatever it is. It's just cosmetic. It's just I take 20 minutes a day to do meditation, and let's get into a meditation group. It's a socialization. It's a herd mentality. Meditation, it's just a way to feel better. It doesn't do anything. It's just, it's just a fad. Now, if you looked in the old days, a person would go for 12 years into the forest and leave society behind and try to lose their own identity. And they'd be meditating, but that's not meditation.
Right.
That isn't 20 minutes a day, and then I go to the hairstylist and I do my hair as well. And on the way home, I'll drop in for some yoga because that's nice, and I'll say Om, and I'll light an incense candle and say a prayer to Shanti. It's just nonsense. It's a bastardization. All things are a bastardization, a minimalization, a slap in the face, an insult to what was originally in the old days something real, and it's just watered down cosmetic for the West, and quite frankly these days even the East.
Yeah, right. So total devotion is what you're relating it to, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, if something is not real, if it isn't genuine, if it isn't something that is pursued for outright transformation, then it's cosmetic. And human beings seek cosmetic things. Meditation is makeup. It's eyeshadow.
I get it. Speaking of things that are cosmetic, how psychological is one's relationship with money? This is another conversation we can have at another day, but I wanted to make sure at least I touch on that, because a couple of things have come up over the last couple of weeks that I just wanted to get your perspective on. How psychological do you think one's relationship with money is?
Yeah, money rules human beings' lives.
Mm-hmm.
I would say whether it's the rich man or the poor man or the middle class man, the intricacy with which money is involved in a human being who lives in a society is off the charts intricate. Part of the reason for that is that money is absolutely needed to survive in society, but it is wildly. It's like water which seeps into everything, and ears are listening for the implication, right? For the message, for the money is this, and it shouldn't be intricate and all these things. It's far more. It gives a human being far more to learn about the state in which he is in, to learn about the shackles that bind him, than it is about what to do about it.
What, in your eyes, what does a healthy, and for you personally, again, what does a healthy relationship with money look like? Or do you even look at it that way?
No, it's prescriptive, a healthy relationship with money means, this is healthy, this is unhealthy. That's kind of like saying, when you leave your house, which way should you turn? So imagine if I asked you that. So if I asked you the question, if you left your house tomorrow, which way are you going to turn? How would
right
you
or left? Right or left? Right.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you, so tomorrow when you leave your house, are you going to turn right or are you going to turn left? The answer to that would be, it depends upon where you want to go. Mm-hmm. Right? If you go to the grocery store, you might turn right. Right? If you go to the golf course, you might turn left. So there's no, you can't say, well, what's a healthy way to turn? Right? It's according to where you want to go. So I don't the idea of healthy, good for you, all these things, there's just no meaning. This irrelevant. What's healthy? Like, okay, if you practice meditation, it's good for you. What does that mean? It means you're going to be free of misery? No. You might get, okay, fine, you might get 10 minutes less. Okay. You're going to be bombarded tomorrow anyways, right? Okay, you're going to build your body just perfect. Okay, great. You're going to have in the grave anyways, right? So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do anything. It doesn't mean that you should, since you're going to die, you should go lie in bed all day. It's everyone's looking for a message. And because everyone's looking for a message, no one's really examining for themselves what the state of affairs really is. They're just too busy. So turn left. Well, I didn't say. Oh, so you mean turn right? It's all. That's the conditioning. That's the only.
Sure, I get it.
Only thing that a human being can hear.
Other than the basics of living, what value does money bring in your life?
Money provides freedom from not having to go to someone to ask if you can do something or other, like a boss, right? Mm-hmm. A boss is a devil. No human being. I know it's better to be homeless. It's better to be homeless, in my view. It's better to be homeless than to ever have to ask someone, can I do this? Can I do that? That's not a job. That's slavery. No human being, I don't know, to put yourself in a position. Now, if you happen to work somewhere, let's say, and you enjoy the job and it's fine, and you can do whatever you want, and you can go, oh, it's fine, right? But once again, these are all from me, right? I'm not saying that this should be for everyone.
Absolutely.
These are all biased views of mine. I don't ever want to ever have to answer to anyone. If I was working in a job and tomorrow afternoon at 3:00, I wanted to fly to Egypt, then I'm going. And you don't have any say. You can't even look at me awkward. There can't even be a space of time between me telling you that I'm going and you saying okay. There can't be more than a width of a breath. Okay? So that's what money provides. Money provides the freedom to do what you want. And that, and taking care of just, the domestic necessities. Beyond that, it means nothing. Totally irrelevant. The status and all that stuff is just nonsense. Means nothing. Has no value.
Well, I live right there with you, man. It's always wonderful to share this dialogue with you. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you.